Hold on, because what I'm about to share with you today is not speculation, it's not a rumor, and it's not political noise. This is real. A brand new immigration law has been passed today, and it has the potential to affect millions of green card holders and immigrant families across the United States. If you are a permanent resident, if you're in the process of adjusting status, if you sponsor family members, or if you plan to apply for U.S. citizenship in the future, you need to hear this. The announcement that a new immigration law has officially passed today marks a significant moment for the entire U.S. immigration system. This is not a proposal, a leaked draft, or a bill still moving through debate. It is now law, meaning the rules governing immigration, residency, and enforcement have legally changed as of today. For immigrants and green card holders, this distinction matters more than anything else, because once a law is passed, agencies are required to begin aligning their procedures, interpretations, and enforcement priorities with the new legal framework. Even before full implementation guidelines are released, the passage itself signals a shift in how immigration cases will be reviewed going forward. When a law passes, it immediately sends a message to immigration officers, adjudicators, and federal agencies that the standards they apply can no longer remain the same. Internal memos, training updates, and policy adjustments often follow very quickly. While the public may not see these changes right away, they begin shaping decisions behind the scenes almost immediately. Applications filed after the law's passage may be evaluated differently than those filed just weeks earlier, even if the applicant's situations are nearly identical. Timing becomes critical, and many immigrants only realize this once they encounter delays, additional questions, or unexpected requests for evidence. The passage of a new immigration law also reshapes expectations. Many green card holders and applicants operate under assumptions based on how the system worked in the past. They rely on advice from friends, family members, or online stories that may now be outdated. Once a law is passed, those old reference points lose reliability. What was acceptable before may now require clarification, stronger proof, or closer review. This creates uncertainty, especially for people who believe their status or application process was already settled or predictable. Another important aspect of a law being officially passed is that it provides legal authority for broader interpretation. Agencies are no longer limited to informal guidance or temporary policies. They now have statutory backing to enforce new standards. This often leads to a more uniform approach across cases, but it can also mean stricter consistency. Officers may have less flexibility to overlook minor issues or exercise discretion the way they once did. For immigrants, this can feel sudden and overwhelming, especially when the details of the law are complex or still being explained. The passage of the law today also affects the legal environment for attorneys, advocates, and immigration consultants. Legal strategies that worked under the old rules may need immediate adjustment. Lawyers begin reassessing pending cases, advising clients differently, and preparing for how courts and agencies are likely to interpret the new language. For individuals without legal guidance, this gap in understanding can be risky, because acting without updated information may unintentionally create problems that did not exist before. It is also important to understand that the impact of a passed law is not always immediate in visible ways. There may not be instant announcements, letters, or public notices sent to green card holders. Instead, the effects often appear gradually through processing times, interview questions, and decision outcomes. This delayed visibility can give a false sense of security, leading people to believe nothing has changed when, in reality, the system is already operating under a new legal foundation. Once a law is passed, reversing or ignoring it is not simple. Challenges may arise in courts, and amendments may be proposed in the future. But until that happens, the law stands as the governing authority. Immigration agencies are legally bound to follow it, and applicants are legally expected to comply with it. This is why the moment of passage matters so deeply. It is the point where discussion ends and enforcement begins, where uncertainty turns into obligation, and where staying informed becomes essential rather than optional. The statement that millions of green card holders are potentially affected is not an exaggeration or a fear-driven claim, but a reflection of how broadly U.S. immigration laws are written and applied. Green card holders represent one of the largest and most diverse immigrant groups in the country, spanning different nationalities, professions, family situations, and lengths of residence. When a new immigration law is passed, it rarely targets a narrow category alone. Instead, it introduces standards, definitions, or procedures that apply across the permanent resident population, meaning the reach of the law extends far beyond a small or isolated group. Green card holders often assume their status places them outside the scope of major legal changes, believing that new laws mainly affect undocumented immigrants or first-time applicants. In reality, permanent residency is a conditional legal status that remains subject to ongoing compliance with immigration law. Any change that affects residency requirements, admissibility standards, or enforcement authority automatically places green card holders within its reach. This is why the number of people potentially affected quickly rises into the millions, even if only a portion will feel immediate consequences. The diversity within the green card holder population further expands the law's impact. Some permanent residents travel frequently for work or family obligations, while others spend long periods outside the United States. Some file taxes jointly, others separately, and some rely on international income sources. Family-based green card holders, employment-based residents, refugees, and diversity visa recipients all fall under the same legal umbrella, even though their paths to residency were very different. A single legal change related to travel, residency continuity, documentation, or eligibility review can touch each of these groups in distinct but meaningful ways. Another reason millions are affected is that immigration law does not operate in isolation. Green card holders are connected to ongoing and future immigration processes, such as naturalization, family sponsorship, green card renewal, or re-entry after TRA. VEL. A change in law that affects how eligibility is assessed or how records are reviewed can influence not only current status, but also future plans. Someone who intended to apply for citizenship, sponsor a spouse, or renew a card without issue may now face additional steps or closer examination, placing them directly within the law's scope. The phrase "potentially affected" is important because impact does not always mean immediate denial or loss of status. It often means increased scrutiny, longer processing times, or new documentation requirements. Even green card holders who ultimately experience no negative outcome may still be required to respond to requests, attend interviews, or clarify aspects of their history that were previously unexamined. When applied across millions of cases nationwide, even small procedural changes can affect an enormous number of people. The scale of impact is also tied to how immigration agencies manage risk and compliance. When new authority or standards are introduced, agencies often respond by expanding reviews rather than limiting them. This can lead to more cases being flagged for follow-up, more files being reopened, and more questions being asked across the board. In this environment, no specific group of green card holders can assume they are completely untouched, because enforcement patterns tend to widen before they narrow. Geography and community networks further amplify the reach of such a law. Green card holders are spread across every state, working in healthcare, technology, construction, education, and service industries. Many support U.S. citizen children, spouses, and extended families. When millions of permanent residents are potentially affected, the consequences extend into workplaces, schools, and local economies. This broad integration into American society is precisely why changes in immigration law resonate so widely. For many green card holders, the realization that they are potentially affected creates uncertainty rather than immediate harm. It raises questions about travel plans, future applications, and long-term security in the United States. Even those who have lived in the country for decades may begin reassessing their records, histories, and assumptions. This collective reassessment, occurring simultaneously across millions of households, reflects the true scale of the law's impact and explains why the phrase carries such weight in discussions surrounding immigration change. The introduction of stricter reviews and compliance checks represents one of the most impactful aspects of any new immigration law because it directly changes how individual cases are examined. Stricter review does not necessarily mean that laws are rewritten to deny more people, but it does mean that immigration officers are instructed to look more closely, ask more questions, and rely less on assumptions or past approvals. What may have once been processed routinely can now require a deeper level of verification, affecting how green card holders and applicants experience the system. Compliance checks are designed to ensure that individuals have consistently followed immigration rules over time, not just at the moment of application. This shifts the focus from a single snapshot of eligibility to a broader review of behavior and documentation. Officers may now compare past filings, travel records, and personal information more carefully, looking for inconsistencies that were previously overlooked. Even small discrepancies, such as differing addresses, employment dates, or travel timelines, can trigger additional review when compliance standards are tightened. One major consequence of stricter reviews is an increase in requests for evidence. When officers are instructed to verify more details, they often ask applicants to submit supporting documents that go beyond what was required in the past. This can include proof of residency, employment history, tax compliance, or the nature of time spent outside the United States. For green card holders who assumed their status was settled, receiving such requests can be unexpected and stressful, particularly if records from years ago are difficult to retrieve. Stricter compliance checks also affect how discretion is exercised. In earlier systems, officers might have had flexibility to weigh circumstances and approve cases despite minor issues. With new standards in place, that flexibility can narrow. Officers may feel obligated to follow checklists more rigidly, ensuring every requirement is satisfied before moving forward. This procedural rigidity can result in longer processing times, more interviews, and fewer quick approvals, even for cases that are ultimately approved. Another important effect is the expanded use of data matching and internal verification systems. Stricter compliance often comes with increased reliance on databases that cross-reference information from multiple government agencies. Tax records, travel logs, employment authorization histories, and prior immigration filings may be compared more systematically. When these systems identify inconsistencies, cases can be flagged automatically, requiring manual review and explanation from the applicant. This process can affect individuals who never believed their records would be re-examined so closely. For green card holders, stricter reviews can also influence future interactions with the immigration system. Applying for citizenship, renewing a green card, or sponsoring a family member may now involve more detailed questioning about past conduct. Actions that seemed routine, such as extended travel abroad or changes in employment, may be examined in the context of compliance rather than convenience. This can create a sense that the threshold for approval has quietly shifted, even though the underlying eligibility categories remain the same. Stricter compliance checks are not limited to new applicants. They can also affect individuals who have held permanent resident status for many years. When laws emphasize enforcement and verification, agencies may revisit existing files during renewals or new applications. This retrospective review can be surprising for long-term residents who believed earlier approvals closed those chapters permanently. Instead, previous decisions may become part of a continuous evaluation of compliance. The psychological impact of stricter reviews should not be underestimated. Knowing that the system is now examining cases more intensely can change how people approach everyday decisions, from travel planning to job changes. Green card holders may become more cautious, document-focused, and risk-averse, even when acting within the law. This shift in behavior reflects the broader influence of compliance-focused policies, which shape not only outcomes but also how individuals navigate life under immigration regulations. Ultimately, stricter reviews and compliance checks transform the immigration process from a largely procedural experience into a more investigative one. They emphasize precision, consistency, and accountability at every stage, placing greater responsibility on individuals to maintain accurate records and clear histories. As these standards take hold, the system increasingly rewards preparation and documentation, while leaving less room for assumptions or informal understanding of how immigration rules are applied. Increased scrutiny of travel history and residency marks a significant shift in how immigration authorities evaluate the stability and intent of green card holders. Travel and residency have always been important factors, but when scrutiny intensifies, they move from being background considerations to central elements of review. Every entry, exit, and period spent outside the United States can take on new significance, especially when officials are instructed to assess patterns rather than isolated events. What once seemed like routine international movement can now be interpreted as evidence requiring explanation. For many green card holders, travel is tied to work, family obligations, or emergencies. Extended stays abroad to care for relatives, manage property, or fulfill professional duties are common and often unavoidable. Under heightened scrutiny, however, these absences may be examined for their length, frequency, and purpose. Officers may question whether time spent outside the United States reflects a continuing commitment to U.S. residency or suggests a stronger connection elsewhere. This evaluation is not limited to extreme cases, but can apply to repeated shorter trips that cumulatively raise questions. Residency scrutiny goes beyond physical presence and extends into how a person's life is structured. Immigration authorities may look at where an individual maintains a home, files taxes, works, and keeps immediate family members. Even if a green card holder spends significant time in the United States, inconsistencies in these areas can complicate assessments of residency. Under stricter review, officers may seek clearer proof that the United States remains the primary place of residence, rather than one of several options. Travel history is also increasingly analyzed through data consistency. Passport stamps, airline records, and government databases provide detailed timelines that can be compared against information provided on immigration forms. When scrutiny increases, mismatches between reported travel and recorded entries or exits become more significant. These discrepancies may be unintentional, but under a heightened review standard, they can lead to additional questioning or delays as applicants are asked to clarify their movements. The concept of residency continuity becomes especially important in this environment. Green card holders are generally expected to maintain continuous residence in the United States, and prolonged absences can disrupt that continuity. With increased scrutiny, officers may examine whether absences were properly documented, whether re-entry permits were obtained when required, and whether the reasons for travel align with maintaining permanent resident intent. Even when the law allows certain absences, proving compliance can become more demanding. Another layer of scrutiny involves how travel patterns align with long-term plans, such as applying for citizenship. Naturalization requires specific residency and physical presence thresholds, and closer examination of travel history can directly affect eligibility. Green card holders, who previously believed they were on track for citizenship, may discover that their travel history raises questions under the new standards. This can lead to postponed applications or the need to wait longer before qualifying. Residency scrutiny can also affect re-entry into the United States after travel. Border officers may ask more detailed questions about the purpose and duration of trips abroad, especially if travel appears frequent or extended. While admission is not automatically denied, the process can become more stressful and uncertain. Increased scrutiny at ports of entry reinforces the idea that residency is an ongoing condition that must be demonstrated repeatedly, not a one-time determination. For families, increased travel and residency scrutiny can create practical challenges. Spouses and children may have different travel needs, leading to complex patterns that are difficult to explain succinctly. Green card holders supporting family members abroad may feel pressure to limit travel, even when personal responsibilities demand it. This tension highlights how immigration policy reaches into personal and family life when scrutiny intensifies. The broader impact of focusing on travel history and residency is a shift in expectations. Green card holders may begin tracking their days more carefully, saving more documentation, and reconsidering how long they stay abroad. What was once a matter of convenience or necessity becomes a legal calculation. This change does not mean that travel is prohibited, but it does mean that every trip carries greater weight in how residency is evaluated under the evolving immigration framework. The requirement for more documentation and verification reflects a broader shift toward evidence-based decision-making within the immigration system. When standards change, authorities often respond by asking applicants and green card holders to prove facts that were previously accepted with minimal supporting material. Documentation becomes the primary way individuals demonstrate compliance, eligibility, and consistency, turning paperwork into a central element of the immigration experience. This change affects not only new filings but also interactions that long-term residents may not have anticipated needing to document again. Verification goes beyond submitting forms. It involves confirming the accuracy of information across multiple sources. Immigration officers may now cross-check details such as employment history, residential addresses, marital status, and financial records with other government databases. This layered verification process means that information provided years earlier can be revisited and compared against current records. Even honest mistakes or outdated information can prompt requests for clarification, placing a greater burden on individuals to explain differences that may seem minor to them. For green card holders, increased documentation requirements can surface during routine processes such as card renewal or naturalization applications. What once involved straightforward submissions may now include detailed evidence of continuous residence, lawful employment, or tax compliance. Applicants may be asked to provide documents covering extended periods, sometimes spanning a decade or more. Gathering such records can be challenging, especially when employers have changed, addresses have shifted, or documents were never saved with future scrutiny in mind. Family-based aspects of immigration are also affected by expanded documentation needs. Sponsoring a spouse, child, or parent may now require additional proof of relationship authenticity, shared residence, or financial support. Verification procedures can include more extensive reviews of marriage timelines, joint assets, and communication records. For families who believe their relationships were already established and accepted, these requests can feel intrusive and unexpected, yet they reflect a system emphasizing thoroughness over assumption. Employment-related verification is another area where documentation demands often increase. Green card holders may need to show proof of lawful employment history, job continuity, or compliance with visa conditions prior to permanent residency. Employers' records, pay stubs, and tax filings can all become part of the verification process. Discrepancies between employment information provided in different filings may require explanation, even if the differences result from clerical errors or changes in job titles. Increased documentation requirements also affect individuals who have spent time outside the United States. Proof of travel purpose, duration, and ties to the United States may be requested to verify continued residency intent. This can include leases, utility bills, bank statements, or letters from employers. The expectation is no longer just that individuals followed the rules, but that they can clearly demonstrate compliance with tangible evidence. The verification process can lengthen timelines and add uncertainty. When officers request additional documents, cases may pause until responses are received and reviewed. Each round of verification introduces the possibility of further questions, especially if submitted documents raise new issues. For applicants, this can create a cycle of responding and waiting, with outcomes dependent on the completeness and clarity of their documentation, rather than the simplicity of their eligibility. Another consequence of expanded verification is the heightened importance of consistency. Information provided on one form must align with details submitted elsewhere, sometimes years apart. Inconsistencies can arise from innocent causes, such as memory lapses or changes in circumstances, but under stricter verification standards, they may require formal explanations. This places pressure on individuals to review their immigration history carefully before submitting new applications. The shift toward more documentation also changes how green card holders prepare for future interactions with immigration authorities. Many begin keeping organized records, saving copies of filings, and tracking important dates more diligently. Documentation becomes a form of protection, a way to anticipate questions before they are asked. This cultural change among immigrants reflects an understanding that verification is no longer an occasional requirement, but an ongoing expectation embedded in the system. The idea that immediate preparation and awareness are critical arises from the reality that immigration law changes rarely provide long grace periods for adjustment. Once a new law is passed and enforcement priorities shift, individuals are expected to adapt quickly, often without receiving personalized notice. For green card holders, this means that waiting to see how things unfold can create unnecessary risk. Awareness becomes the first line of protection because understanding what has changed allows people to make informed decisions before problems arise. Preparation begins with recognizing that immigration status is not static. Even permanent residency depends on continued compliance with evolving rules. When standards tighten, those who have already reviewed their records, travel history, and documentation are in a stronger position than those who react only after receiving a notice or request. Immediate preparation does not require panic or drastic action, but it does require proactive attention to details that are often overlooked during long periods of stability. Awareness also helps counter misinformation. In moments of legal change, rumors spread quickly through social media, community groups, and informal advice networks. Some information may be exaggerated, while other critical details may be misunderstood or ignored. Staying aware through reliable sources allows green card holders to separate fact from speculation. This clarity reduces fear-driven decisions and helps individuals focus on what truly matters under the new legal environment. One key aspect of preparation is self-review. Green card holders benefit from examining their past filings, travel patterns, and compliance history with a critical eye. Identifying gaps, inconsistencies, or missing documents early provides time to gather explanations or supporting evidence if needed later. This kind of review is far less stressful when done calmly and voluntarily than when rushed under a deadline imposed by an immigration notice. Immediate preparation also includes planning ahead for future interactions with the immigration system. Those considering naturalization, card renewal, or family sponsorship need to understand how new standards may affect timing and eligibility. Awareness of these factors allows individuals to adjust plans, delay applications if necessary, or seek guidance before submitting forms. This forward-looking approach can prevent avoidable delays or denials. Another important element is understanding personal risk factors. Not all green card holders are affected in the same way, and awareness helps individuals assess how changes apply to their specific situations. Frequent travel, extended stays abroad, employment changes, or complex family arrangements may require closer attention. Preparation allows individuals to document legitimate reasons for these factors rather than being caught off guard when questions arise. Community awareness also plays a role. Informed individuals often become sources of accurate information for family members and friends who may not follow legal updates closely. This shared awareness strengthens communities by reducing collective anxiety and helping others prepare responsibly. When people understand that preparation is a practical step rather than a sign of trouble, they are more likely to engage with the process constructively. Immediate preparation can also involve seeking professional advice when appropriate. Awareness of legal change prompts timely consultations, which are often more effective before issues arise than after complications develop. Understanding when to ask questions and when to act can make a significant difference in outcomes, particularly in a system that increasingly emphasizes compliance and documentation. Ultimately, awareness and preparation shift the balance of control back to the individual, instead of reacting to decisions made by others. Green card holders who stay informed can anticipate expectations and meet them confidently. This proactive mindset reduces uncertainty and helps people navigate change with greater stability. In an immigration system that evolves continuously, those who prepare early are better positioned to protect their status, their plans, and their peace of mind.